stop at 4 o'clock, but I will hang in there for as long as I can.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Just let us know when you slip out so we can put it in the minutes if we're not done by then.
I'll put it in the chat.
Sounds good. Okay. We call this March 9th, 2023 meeting of the AMAS Technical Advisory Committee meeting to order. It is 2:32. Aaron, would you do the roll call for us?
Yes, Brian Lindemood is not here. Would you please introduce yourself for the record? It's been a little while since you were here last.
Yeah, I'm Kate Deeper.
Thank you. Steve Rebuffo,
Present.
Matt Stitchick, Yemi Alini,
Present.
Luke Boland,
Present.
Todd Van Hope,
Present.
Brad Coy,
Here.
Melinda Kohlhaas,
Present.
you. Jamie Acton has noted she will be late, but should be attending by Teams later. And Craig Lyon.
Here.
Okay. Thank you. Aaron, would you also do the public involvement announcement?
Yes, AMAS committee meetings are open to the public, and the public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. Business items are presented by staff or consultants. After that, the committee discusses the business item. The public is invited to formally comment. Each participant will have 3 minutes to speak on their topic. A couple of housekeeping items. If you're joining us virtually and are not a member of the committee, please turn your camera off when you're not speaking on an item. If you're joining us by phone, to mute and unmute the microphone, press *6. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. First item is the agenda. Do we have a motion for approving the agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
And moved by Mr. Leamy, second by Mr. Boland. Are there any objections to approving the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next item is approval of the meeting minutes for February 9th, 2023. Do we have any, do we make the motion first or do we have?
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
moved by Mr. Lyon, second by Mr. Kohlhaas. Do we have any questions, I guess, suggested changes?
Who was the second?
Mr. Van Hope. Did I say Kohlhaas?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Van Hope. Okay, thanks for attention. Sorry about that.
Move to amend on page 4 of 6. There's a statement by self. Mr. Boland disclosed that he will abstain from voting on this matter. He is advocating for DOT and PF and also wants to be named in this letter. I was actually abstaining because the letter advocates for DOT and PF. So if we can amend the statement to maybe say, Mr. Boland discloses that he will abstain from voting on this matter because he is advocating for it, because the letter is advocating.
Sounds good. Did you get that word? Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, so because it is advocate for DOTF, which is also named in the letter. Okay. Any other amendments to the meeting minutes?
I gave Aaron a couple minor edits, so I can share those with Lori.
Yeah, so I'll go through them real quick, just so it's on the record, but under number 2 on the first page, it says policy committee instead of the technical advisory committee under public involvement announcement. So we'll correct that. And then there's a follow-up correction that we're going to have to do that we can't answer at this point, but it is on page 4. Under 5B, where it talks about Chair Coy open the floor to public comments and then list the members of the public. Anna Boson is on that list, and we need to verify with her whether she was speaking for DOT and PF or as a DOT and PF employee, or if she was speaking as herself. I'm fairly certain she was speaking as herself, but we need to verify with her first before and make that correction. So that'll be an edit we'll make. We just can't answer it right now. And Jamie Acton has joined us.
Sounds good. Like, so on the last page, it just lists her name without DOT and PF.
Yeah, so we'll have to kind of verify it through the whole document.
That's good. I do remember her commenting at one point that it was for herself, but it is a good thing to verify. Okay, so let the record show that Jamie Acton joined the meeting. It was 2:36. Okay, sounds good. So should we then postpone the approval of these, or we can approve them with that change once it's made. That's a minor change.
Yeah, it's a pretty minor change, just making sure we clarify that. I think if you guys are comfortable with approving it with that, we can go ahead and move forward and then just let you guys know what the change is.
Okay, sounds good. Is it better to do a friendly amendment to the motion or to have a motion to have the amendment?
If somebody would need to make a motion if you don't, because I can't friendly amendment or.
I think the edits are pretty minor. They're just staff edits. I think we should just approve it as is.
With
Once Aaron determines.
with Luke's edits too, I guess what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that she provided Luke's edit.
Yeah.
Do we need to have?
Chair, just use his with the edits.
Okay, because we had a motion made. I mean, a second.
Here's no.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. Sorry about that, everyone.
Okay, moving on to action item 5A, operating agreement, membership title changes. Is that one that you'll be taking care of?
Yes, okay, so I do have a correction memo. It said that the AMAT's operating agreement was last updated in April of 21 and changed the seat. It was last updated in April of 21, but the change of the air quality advisory seat to the energy and sustainability manager actually happened in 2019. So just heads up on that clarification. I'll correct it for the policy committee. So the operating agreement is coming before you today because we are recommending as staff a change to the makeup of the technical advisory committee for one seat. In 2019, when we changed the air quality advisory committee representative to the energy and sustainability manager for the municipality of Anchorage, we had really good participation by Shana Kilcoyne at that time, and she was the person filling that role. Shana recently left municipality of Anchorage service. I have reached out to the director of solid waste service where this position is housed, and have not received a response back if the position will be filled or not. As we've already spent a number of months without the seat filled, it'd be nice if we could kind of move forward and put somebody in that spot. So I was working with staff and we were having a hard time with who we should recommend to fill that position, just because there's so many that could. And Mr. Lyon gave me a wonderful recommendation to add Parks and Rec to our technical advisory committee. So I reached out to Parks and Recreation, Steve Rafuse, who's here today, to ask if they would be interested. Steve asked everyone there and they were all interested. So as it stands now, if the operating agreement is changed and approved to have a Parks and Rec representative out there, Steve would be the person filling in the position. And then Taylor Keegan would fill in when he is not available. We don't have to specifically name a person in the operating agreement, just the who's that there's going to be a representative from the organization. I think this is a really good change. We are working very closely with Parks and Rec on a number of projects now and in the future, really kind of beefing up our involvement in trails throughout our community. So I think this would be a very good and welcomed addition to the technical advisory committee. Urge your support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions from the committee? Questions or comments from the committee? One thing I did see as I was looking through it is it There are a few other very minor changes. Page 4, it says comprised of, it talks about the assembly comprised of 11 elected public officials. And given that we have 12 now, I was thinking that could be a minor change that we could make at the same time as making this amendment. To add the parks representative. So that was one thing that I was just thinking. And so that was one comment that I have on it. Is that one that if we make a motion that we would include in the motion to have that change, or is?
Yeah, if you wanted to change now, it would be something you would need to add as a friendly amendment or regular. I would recommend a regular amendment. So motion on the item and then do an amendment to make that change, just because it wasn't part of the original document we had posted yet.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Are there any comments from the public? Hearing none, what is the will of the committee?
I move to approve.
Okay, moved by Ms. Colhaus, seconded by Mr. Boland. Are there any? Does somebody want to take up the friendly amendment or a second amendment to
I
add?
move we change on page 4, the number of members of the assembly to 12 from 11.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lyon.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Colhaus. Any questions or comments on that? Are there any objections to approving the motion for the amendment? Okay, hearing no objections, the amendment is approved. So moving back then to the amended, the original motion, make the changes to add the Parks and Rec Department to the Technical Advisory Committee. What is the, let's see, are there any objections or any other things to add? Any other comments?
I'll just note for the record that I usually get about 2 good ideas a year, so I'm using one of them here.
Okay,
So
with the Parks and Rec?
that's where I'm using it up.
Yeah, that sounds good. And it is a great idea, especially because the non-motorized aspect, the trail connections to the transportation network, and of all of those elements, that is a fantastic idea.
Well, Steve and Taylor have been very active in a lot of our non-motorized projects lately, and so it's a natural fit. It's a really good natural fit, so.
And I highly esteem Steve, so it'll be great to have you here with us. Okay, so are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Great, so moving to the next item, action item 5B, critical urban freight corridors.
Okay, this will actually be done by our Freight Advisory Committee staff, John Sissel.
Good afternoon, John Cecil with the Freight Advisory Committee, as Aaron pointed out. So late last year, the state completed its 2050 long-range transportation plan, and there was a component of that with a freight plan, and that covers the entire state, including Anchorage. And there were members from the Freight Advisory Committee. Steve Buffalo was one. Who participated in the statewide effort. So as a result of the completion of that work late last year, there was some recommended additions that are designated as critical urban freight corridors, or CFCs, and totaling slightly less than 30 miles. We added one C Street project afterwards, but so the 30 miles, the mileage of 30 miles would be, if approved subsequently by the policy committee, would be eligible for additional additional federal funding. So the Freight Advisory Committee met in a special meeting on March 1st. They went through it and recommends to the Technical Advisory Committee that we consider this and recommend forwarding to the Policy Committee for approval.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Snisel. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Are these the comprehensive roads identified, or did you say these are added, or added?
These are additional critical urban freight corridors. Because there's a, I'm gonna get this wrong, but there's an existing, it's the mileage, total mileage is designated by the federal government and for the entire state. And Anchorage has a component that up to a certain level. I mean, this falls below the, I think it's 100 miles for Anchorage. So we're well below that. The designation of those would trigger these eligibility for additional federal funding.
So there's a maximum number? that
Yeah,
we're working on, is that what
I
you're-
think it's 100 miles. It's, I don't have the plan in front of me. I'm sorry, I should probably bought it, but
But it's the comprehensive list for Anchorage
yes,
within
yeah.
Anchorage. Okay, that's right.
right, sorry.
So the existing critical urban freight corridors are really limited to Fairbanks and the Dalton Highway right now because Anchorage didn't get anything to them in time until recently. So we're kind of trying to play catch up with this.
Added, these are the ones identified for Anchorage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so there are no others in Anchorage. These are the Anchorage ones.
From what I can see, looking at the 2050 plan, yes. These would be the only ones in Anchorage. Anchorage to Eagle River, the whole lane that's in.
Are there other questions or comments from the committee?
Another question. So the C Street, what about the companion? Was A Street ever discussed or? That wasn't identified.
It wasn't identified, but there were discussions about A Street in the committee level. And staff too.
Did the freight? Did the freight stakeholder identify A Street as being needed to be included?
Help me out here, Aaron. I don't remember if that was, this was after after we saw that initial list and then had conversations about if there should be any additional segments added, and the one that sort of fell at the end result was the C Street, but not A Street.
As far as I know, there was really not a lot of discussion on anything adding more than what's shown on the memo here.
Looks like Matt Stitchick has got his hand raised. Go ahead, Matt.
Can you tell me the significance of a roadway being designated a CUFC? Does it qualify for a different category of funding for upkeep, a different maintenance schedule? And I'm also curious why Minnesota itself, Minnesota Boulevard or Walter Hickel Expressway, at least from port to international airport, wouldn't be included.
It is, so the purpose of this exercise is to enable additional federal funding for these segments. Now, I can't tell you exactly what pot of funds that would come out of, but that's what we were told in the consulting process, is that what these designations would potentially trigger additional federal funding. There's also a rural program that's separate that does the same thing, but we don't qualify for the rural program that we do for the urban. As far as the International Airport Road,
Minnesota. Yeah,
Minnesota,
it never really came up, but you may notice that like the Glen Highway is not on there either, and it's a pretty vital freight route for the state.
It appears that none of the NHS roads in my first class are on here.
Northern Lights would be NHS. I think the old Seward Highway is. I'd have to look and see if Ocean Dock, Reeve, Whitney, Post are all part of that or not.
Yeah,
They may be designated as the strategic highway routes, Stratholme or whatever it's
I
called.
don't see Tudor, I don't see Fifth and Sixth and INL, Glen, Seward, Minnesota. So the ones that I'm most familiar with in NHS.
So I'm looking at I'm just looking at the plan right now under appendix I for anyone who's following along, that it does show existing proposed freight network maps. And there's a federal freight network that already has Minnesota, Fifth, Tudor, Muldoon, the Glen Highway, the Seward Highway on there. So I think they kind of maybe have their own designations.
NHS, right? So one question that I was looking for that, and for my Google search, I wasn't able to find that appendix.
it's in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't able to find the appendix, so.
I think there's, because the document is so large, I think it's broken out separately. But there is appendix I, which is where I got the table from. So to be able to put this menu together for you.
Okay.
I can email
Yeah,
it to
you
you.
me the link, that's
Sure.
great, because I found the Alaska statewide freight plan and it had the main body, but I didn't see anywhere that I could get to add more than just appendix.
I'll send you.
Aaron, is this limited to 100 miles, including the prior designated roadways, or is that falling into a different category that doesn't count towards that?
It'd be 100 miles for any critically urban freight corridor. So those prior designated in this. And I believe even with this on there and then the rest of the state, it falls below that 100 miles.
Okay.
There's breakdown. One other question that I have is, what's the time sensitivity?
Well, we were encouraged to get this work done last year in tandem with the adoption of the state plan, the long-range transportation and freight plan. And for a variety of reasons, mostly trying to coordinate with the freight committee because they only meet quarterly. We weren't able to do that, so we lagged behind a little bit, and then trying to get on to your agenda. It's been challenging at times because of everything that you're dealing with and the policy committee as well. So it is, I mean, the sky won't fall if it's delayed another month, I think, but it is, we are encouraging folks to get this done sooner rather than later. That helps.
Yeah. I guess I asked that because of kind of the question about the NHS and clarification. That would, in my mind, be helpful to know if that truly are, is where this falls in, why those roads are not on here. Kind of the question of A and C also comes up because if A, which is one way, or yeah, of a couplet, which are serving. And even then, for me, just the questions of A and C going through downtown, I know is of a concern of having all the trucks on those going through downtown. And I'm curious, like, what the implications are for making freight investments and with the sewage event PEL looking at potential other freight connections and anyway, so I got a lot of questions that are not answered right now that relate to all of those elements. So I'd be hesitant to vote to move this forward without some of that additional information. But I'm open to what the committee.
My understanding all along is this basically leverages other funds. That's
Yes,
the main thing
correct.
that this does. So, and didn't you just suggest that a lot of the NHS was on?
Yeah, they have their own,
Right? Yeah,
NHS has its own kind of freight network designation because of the severity of it. So I think this might be roads that are in addition to that NHS designation. Because NHS funding can be used on NHS routes. This just provides additional freight specific funding for these particular routes.
I know that they've been asking for this for a while.
Yeah.
Feds have asked for a while, so. Personally, I'm happy to move it along today. Suggestion to the policy to designate these ones, but. Just one vote.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah, just one comment is,
Okay.
you know, the longer routes, well, the old Seward Highway and C Street anyway are the northwest. I mean, are the north-south routes. All of the other ones, except for the spaghetti strings that are down there in the Ship Creek area, there are shorter, but they're the east to west ones, except International Airport Road. And I think, part of the reason for the Freight Advisory Committee wanting to put these on this list is there's been little or no attention given to the east-west connectors. And this gives us a chance to focus on those going forward as well. And I can't remember why the A Street portion of AC wasn't added to the list either. I wish I could remember that, but I don't.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
I would say, Steve's comment was helpful because that was what I felt like I was missing is that, well, where's my other north route? I see a lot of east-west, I see C Street, but where's my companion piece of going north? If indeed it's already covered in NHS, that's one thing, but, maybe just one more round of looking at that and seeing if there's any other north-south corridors that need to be added to this. And then revisiting would be my proposal.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, any comments from the public? Go ahead, James.
Yeah, James Starzik, DOT Planning. The critical urban freight corridors are intended to be connections between freight facilities, ports, airports, and the interstate system, which is why you don't see the Glen Highway, the Seward Highway included into this, because they are already part of the freight system. These are connections from the freight areas to the interstate.
To the NHS?
Yes. And then just to put a point on it, the designation of CUFC allows for these routes to have the National Highway Freight Program funding applied to them, which without the CUFC designation, they're not eligible for. There's also other programs, the Fast Lane Grants Program is one. And I imagine there's others, but it's the only one I know off the top of my head that is specific to the CUFCs. So that would be the advantage of having these on there. So to your point about the north-south corridors, as the Seward Highway is already part of the system, it doesn't need this designation. And I just wanted to reiterate that this list from Old Seward to International is part of the state freight plans recommendations. This action that you're being asked to take is in support of the state's recommendation. Plus C Street.
Perfect, thank you, James. Are there any other comments from the public? Anybody online? Okay, so are there any? So what is the will of the committee?
Now, for me, after hearing James's response there, I'm very comfortable sending it forward. So I move to recommend approval of the designation of these critical urban freight corridors to the policy committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lyon, seconded by Mr. Rebecca. Do we have any committee discussion on the motion?
I think since I'm hearing that it's catch up and this gives an opportunity for funding, it can always be revisited if something later on has to be added. So I'm in support, especially now hearing that this is added to other NHS roadways that already have a designation. I'm comfortable
Yeah, I
moving it.
I still have the question about A and C through downtown. It's C on here, but not A on here. And given that C was not part of the initial recommendation, part of that would be allayed if C was just removed from the list until that could be addressed. Personally, but I guess as the chair, I know that when I watch the assembly meetings, they pass the gavel and they have those sorts of discussions. So is that probably the best thing to do?
Yeah, if you want to if you want to take an action or have further discussion, you'll need to pass the gavel up to the vice chair and have them run the meeting.
Okay, get rid of the meeting for the moment. So I would just like to make.
I'm still on, well, poll 9. Come on, man.
Well, I was just catching up, because we already had a motion in a second,
Yeah.
so I was just, okay, sure, having a discussion.
Yeah, so I would like to propose an amendment to remove C Street for now from the list. Because I'm comfortable with everything else except for that one.
Right, so we have an amendment to remove C Street.
I got a motion, I need a second.
Need a second for that. But
I'll second for purposes of discussion. I guess I'd really like to hear a convincing argument to remove it. I haven't heard it yet, but
is there any discussion from the committee and the removal of C Street?
So my thoughts on it are that the downtown engineering street study, the Stewart PEL, and other projects are looking forward at some of these corridors. I know that I've heard significant concerns expressed with the amount of heavy vehicles on those roads. I'm curious, will this additional funding address some of those safety concerns? Is it better to have these roads designated in this? Will that make it safer or better? Or will it just entrench some of the freight focus without having due consideration for downtown? So those are the questions that I guess I have on it, why I'm hesitant without knowing a little bit more about it. And especially given that it's added as a C street and not an A street. So it seems, and the fact that the NHS was not necessarily known on here, just still not quite comfortable. So that's where I'm at on that.
I guess for me, from what I've heard from both John and James, and this is an opportunity to get additional funds to help these facilities. So it seems like that's an opportunity to help with some of the issues you're talking about. And so if we take it off there, it removes a category of funding that could be brought to bear for issues along there. As to whether or why C Street is added but not A Street, I don't know the truck traffic. I don't know if there's more using C Street but not as many using A Street. I just don't know. So without John, I don't know if you have any insight to the discussion that happened at the Freight Committee for adding C and not A.
I don't. I wasn't part of the statewide freight committee. Steve was, maybe Steve can speak to this, but I can't recall.
Yeah, no, as I said earlier, I don't recall any, A Street coming up when the Freight Advisory Committee met and looked at this route, and with the chair of the Freight Advisory Committee being the president of the Alaska Trucking Association, I would have thought that if there was an A Street issue of exclusion here, that the ATA guy would have brought it up. And it was, we were silent on that part of the A Street, C Street. For whatever the reason, I just don't remember.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any comments from the committee?
I'm sorry. I guess I can see some of the benefit to adding C Street there with some of the businesses on the south end of C Street. South of the couplet. That would access other NHS routes there. So maybe that was part of the reason.
Similarly, I'm also looking for ways to have truck traffic that want to head west, not go through Third Avenue and round the corner to Minnesota, but having an opportunity to kind of take a straight shot and then also head over to International if they want to go to the airport or something like that. So that's another goal of mine, is to see if there's other corridors that they can alleviate some of the cutting through downtown itself.
So right now, what we're talking about is recommending to the policy committee. And I wonder if some of the things that I've expressed can be looked into so that they can.
We have to finish the amendment first. No, additional discussion of the amendment.
Right, on my amendment, yeah, that's what my amendment is, to
Right.
remove C Street.
So, public, sorry. To comment through committee, do you have additional comments?
So I guess I'd be willing to withdraw my amendment if some of the things that I'm expressing can be looked into so that they're ready for the policy committee. Should the same things.
Can you spell out exactly what you're looking for so we can make sure to do that?
What I'm looking for are the understanding of what these additional funds would do with regards to safety and the relation with other users. And then the second would be the question about A Street. Should A Street also, if it is going to be in fact a safety benefit for downtown, should A Street be added?
As my understanding, the designation allows the use of, as Mr. Starson said earlier, additional federal funds. That doesn't prioritize them. It just allows them for, if projects are moving forward, to use other than those.
So that's, I guess, my request. Sounds like that can be done, so I'd be happy to remove my my motion to amend it for Vinci Street.
Amendment to withdraw. Motion.
So in my motion to, my,
So you seconded, do you agree?
I second that.
I think,
Second, sorry.
Oh, you already did.
okay,
So that can, the amendment.
that's withdraw. Okay, so I guess it's back to me. So now we've got the original motion on the floor. Any other additional committee discussion? Are there any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved to recommend approval of these corridors to the policy committee. Okay, moving on to the next item. Item 5C, Freight Advisory Committee nomination. Looks like we have two of them. Do we address each of them separately?
Yes, if we could. And John Sussel will be the one talking about these.
John Cecil again. So there are currently several vacancies on the Freight Advisory Committee. And so we are proposing, staff is forwarding these nominations to you for your consideration and recommending to the policy committee for approval. The first individual you'll see in the memo is Carlos Rojas, who would fill the commercial vehicle compliance seat on the Freight Advisory Committee. And indicated his, I didn't get a formal resume from Mr. Rojas, but he did provide me some background information on his experience, which I think would be a good addition to the committee. There's been two other individuals from the commercial vehicle compliance DOT that have served in that capacity and have great additions to the group.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cecil. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Well, I was just going to mention that Mr. Rojas is with us. Maybe he would like to say a few words.
Oh, great. Is he online? Okay,
I
yeah.
believe so. Unless he just ran away. No, there he is.
So should we go through real quick committee comments, questions, and then have Mr. Rojas provide public comment? Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Who-
James, right now?
Yeah, could you tell me the names of the folks that have left?
The individuals, Dan Smith has been in the Freight Advisory Committee for a long time, and he stepped down last fall, and his replacement was Catherine Hensley, who served for a brief period of time. She had also helped Dan out when he wasn't able to sit on the committee, so she was an alternate. But she moved on and took another position with the feds. And so that's created this vacancy.
And they're all kind of with the DOT.
Yeah, with commercial vehicle
Okay.
compliance.
Other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, hearing none, go ahead, Mr. Hutz. Be happy to have you for a moment.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Carlos Rojas. In my quick bio, I've just been in the transportation industry for 29 years. I've been with the state of Alaska Commercial Vehicle Compliance for 23 now. I work directly for Mr. Dan Smith, who is our previous member that was on the board here, the committee. And then I've worked with Catherine Hensley as well before she did depart to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you for attending. It's great to see you and have you on while we're talking about this appointment. So thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing and seeing none, what is the will of the committee?
Move to recommend Mr. Rojas's approval to the policy committee.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lyons, seconded by Mr. Alini. Do we have any objections to approving? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Yeah, thank you for your service. I guess it will be the policy committee's final call, but we do recommend you, so thank you. Let's move to the next Freight Advisory Committee nomination. Go ahead, Mr. Cecil.
So we have, as I mentioned, second candidate to serve on the Freight Advisory Committee to fill the academic seat. And previously that has been filled by Dr. Prokop in the UAA. And Dr. Prokop has since retired and moved out of state. And so the candidate was brought to our attention, Dr. Helena Wisniewski. Hopefully I got that right this time. And she would She's the dean, let me get this right, chair of the Management, Marketing, Logistics, and Business Analytics Department at UAA, and she's also a professor of entrepreneurship in the College of Business and Public Policy. And she has, you'll see the information that I provided in the memo has quite an extensive background, and I think she would be an excellent candidate to fill the academic seat for the Freight Advisory Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cecil. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've known Dr. Wisniewski for about 10 years now. And this this resume here does not do her justice. She's quite informed about all things business related here in town. Has a very highly technical background with respect to transportation systems, and the new add to her resume is the artificial intelligence piece here, and she's part of the group that's standing up the artificial intelligence program in the College of Business and Public Policy, UAA, which could very well at some point in time serve this committee well. So I think she'd be a tremendous add.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bushel. Well, I was impressed by her resume, so if it's not doing her justice, then that's pretty astounding. So thank you for helping us understand.
And she's a musher.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah. That's part of the resume. Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay. How about any questions or comments from the public? Anyone online or in the room? What is the will of the committee?
I'll move to approve the nomination.
Give a second.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Thank you.
moved by Mr. Rebecca, second by Ms. Colgate. Are there any Colhaus? I know.
It's a learning curve.
And
We're all in the same boat.
I mean, part of it is the moment of performance, you go to
Yeah.
have more, you just,
Yes.
yes. So, moved by Ms. Colhaus. Is there any objection to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Next item on our agenda is item 5D, Community Advisory Committee Resolution on the Sewer to Glen PEL. It looks like there's two, so let's take up the 2023-01.
This will be done by Christine Schutte, who staffs that committee.
Thank you. The Community Advisory Committee met at their first quarter meeting and took up a resolution on the sewer to Glen. At that meeting, they bifurcated the resolution into two different resolutions, which is why we have two today. The first resolution was just asking the project team to release documents and also asking the state to make the project a priority. The second resolution is focused on comments. The committee wanting to submit comments on the travel demand model. So they had a special meeting to take up that second resolution. This is how the committee has laid out the two resolutions, and we brought them to today together as a pair.
Yeah, thank you. So are there any questions, I guess? So let's take up the first one, do them separate like they presented. So the first item, as you mentioned, is to ask for the release of public comments.
And that has been.
That has been done already?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the resolution for number one. Are there any questions or comments from the committee with regards to that? Go ahead, Mr. Van Hout.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the point of this entire resolution is, if the work that they're asking for has already been done.
Right, that's a good question.
The first one, There's two therefores. The first one is to release information. And then the second one is be it further resolved, the CAC advocates for the PEL process to become a priority within Alaska DOT. As this winter has shown the continued dangers, failing to address the issue along the Seward Glen corridor. So as staff, we didn't feel we could take away that resolution just because the first part of it was really.
Well, the second part is already underway. I mean, in the project, there's no hierarchy in the project sense. It's either going or it's not. So it's underway. So you don't need to tell us to get underway. It's already underway.
I would add to the comments and responses that received on this were higher volume than what we anticipated. And so there was a period where there wasn't a lot of interaction from DOT on this, and I understand the perception that it's not it wasn't a priority for DOT and FAC, but I would assure folks that this is a high priority for the department.
Just a quick explanation on this. So they passed this resolution before all the comments were released by the project team. So, you know, and our role as staff is not really to make determinations for this kind of stuff, but to bring it to you all and have you act on it. So that's why it's coming before you, even though it's already kind of been done. Because it happened after this resolution was passed, but before we could bring it to you guys for action.
And looking at it, does it have a date as to when they have passed it?
The meeting was January 10th.
There we go. Okay.
Yes, the first resolution was passed at that meeting, and
Okay. And
the second one was February 21st, really there. Special meeting.
how much time was there between like public meetings? I know that it was recently the stakeholders workshop, but like how long had it been since the prior kind of outreach efforts?
Defer to Kevin Jackson. Are you aware of the dates?
Not exactly. I think it was 7 months. Something. About 7 months. And like Luke was saying, we did experience or receive a tremendous amount of comments. It took a long time to, go through and answer. And I thought that those were all released prior to that meeting, but just barely prior.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there other questions or comments from the committee?
I know as a project manager, a project has a timeline and we're always open and engaging with the public, one of the next milestones of completion. And kind of like what Todd says, I don't think by passing a resolution that the second part of that is going to really change anything. I know that when we have public meetings, there's a time frame for it. I know there was a recent PEL meeting that was open to a lot of agencies and hopefully the public. There was a transportation fair, another opportunity. So the project's underway. I personally don't see a reason to move forward with a resolution on this item. My comment.
Yeah, these things take time, especially this one, as big as an area as it is, as heavily traveled a corridor as it is, and as many comments as you got. I don't see anything that makes me think that it hasn't been a priority or it's been slow. So I would not be in support of moving this resolution along. Seems like it's a process and it's moving at the speed that these things normally do. Just my opinion.
Okay. I know that I did wonder where the project was for a little while. But now that it's kind of, I went to the stakeholder workshop and it sounds like these are submitted. It's from my technical perspective, it feels like everything's kind of moving forward. So I think between when they passed this and now, I can see that there's been quite a bit of action. So from my technical perspective, I'm in agreement with with those comments that have been expressed. Are there any, so moving on from the public, or from the committee comments, are there any comments from the public? Any online? Okay. Hearing no comments from the public, what is the will of the committee?
Well, I'm kind of rusty with that. I was gonna make a motion to withdraw this and not forward to the policy committee, but I don't know if that's.
We've never done that, right? So
Right.
what do we
Well,
do?
we could table it, or we could just not.
There you go.
make a
Let's
motion.
table it, this resolution.
You could table it indefinitely and then basically just kills it, or you could send it back to the CAC and say, you know, thank you for your efforts. This project, you know, the documents were released. This project is a priority of DOT's. Something like that. That could be an option because, you know, one of the reasons we bring these forward is to also acknowledge the effort that the Community Advisory Committee puts into this kind of stuff, because they take a lot of time and effort to work on these and try and get something forward. So I don't want us to just, not that I'm saying anyone is doing this, but give a perception of dismissing their comments as not being important. So there are a couple of options before you guys, what you would want to do depends on what you're comfortable with. You can table it, you can send it back and say, thank you, but this is already done.
What he said.
So the motion would be to provide a reply to the community advisory committee that we appreciate their comments and their effort. And feel that since this was passed in the interim, that both of these items have been addressed.
I'd imagine that's
So
probably,
you suggested in a letter from staff back to the community council?
we could probably just do an email.
Okay.
And just send it to them and say, took it up at the meeting and this is their response and, you know, thank them for their effort and everything.
Then I will make the recommendation that staff return this letter to the community council, thanking them for their service and telling them that these items have already been taken care of through the L process.
Okay, moved by Mr. McCollum,
I second.
second by Mr. Leahy. Are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Now looking at second resolution. So the second resolution is the one that has this, the 15 different statements. And they are asking us to submit these comments to the project team. So this would be basically, are we forwarding it to the policy committee to submit to them, or what is it that they're asking exactly?
Like they took this up as a resolution. Another way that they could have done it is just to submit these comments to the project team. So you could suggest that they are sent to the project team. That could be your recommendation.
Okay.
It's, yeah, because they're in resolution form, that is why you are seeing them as a committee, and that we didn't just have the CAC submit their comments.
So I guess the question before us is, how do we want to treat these comments? Do we want them to be run AMATs? Or do we want to respond to the CAC similarly, or what are thoughts?
Are we on? Committee now, or Mr.?
We're on questions or comments.
So another quick question, and I don't know if Kevin's the right person to answer or Lori, but I mean, some of these comments were, I'm gonna say, I do not see evidence and they're not the committee sort of thing. This looks like someone's comments that have been submitted. Were these submitted? Were these someone's comments? Are these duplicates, or have we seen this in this format?
To my knowledge, this is the first time we've seen it.
Okay,
And we responded to them. I went to that special meeting. I don't think the committee members had a chance to review the team's responses prior to that meeting, but they chose to move the resolution forward anyway.
Yes, I will. It's my fault that the committee did not get the responses from Kevin Jackson. I take blame on responsibility for that. I did not submit it to them in time for them to be able to review and respond to it, or to see the responses. So I apologize for
The
that.
CAC.
The CAC, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the comments that I sent to you were the same ones that were sent to the CAC, basically responding to all 15 of these items. And I didn't get it to them. I think I submitted it to them at the minute the meeting started, so.
Okay. Yeah.
We were kind of late too. We didn't find out that it was still going forward. So I think Wednesday prior. And so we scrambled to pull these together, and I think I sent the responses to Aaron on Friday.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that information. Are other questions or comments from this meeting? Go ahead.
Would the CAC be interested in taking a look at the responses and maybe revising the resolution based on input from the project team?
I mean, I think they're different from all resolutions. At this point, we're still in discussions. So I think that's a good outcome.
That's one of the options that we could do from a,
You could ask them to do that, yeah, they chose to just move forward at that moment, but you could ask them to look at the responses.
They didn't seem too interested in looking at the responses when we provided it to them.
But you just provided in the morning of the meeting or the day of the meeting?
Yeah.
but they had them at the meeting and they could have taken the time to look through and make sure that they.
We did talk about it, and I think they ended up saying, no, we just want to send it forward as is, so.
Sometimes it just takes effort to generate your question, so the timing of it, maybe we could just, let's move it forward.
So that in part of this discussion is the fact that a lot of these comments have already been addressed. And a lot of the concerns are really even outside the scope of the project, so they can't even be dealt with in this project. So I'm highly concerned about voting this to the policy committee as is. Well, first sending it back to the community council, saying, would you please revise your comments to focus on the Pell itself and the ability that the Pell has to take up productions.
I mean, one way we could look at it is like an AIM, an informational memo to the policy committee, just to see that transparency of what the committee was concerned about, and then also with the companion responses so that they can have an understanding. But I don't know if there is such a thing. An informational memo rather than a resolution, because I don't see any real action that needs to happen. I understand I looked at the responses. I feel like there's a very highly qualified project team and responses were very detailed. Like there's a good understanding of all the different elements of resources that inform the project, and but is that possible? Just, how's there a way to at least carry the message forward as these are important to the community members, to the CAC, to the policy committee, but not really as a resolution? Is there something like that?
I mean, yeah, we could send it back to the CAC and say, do whatever, please review these. At the same time, we could send it to the policy committee, but then the question is going to come up. Did the CAC review these in light of the comments? So maybe it's send it back to the CAC for them to review it and see if they want to make changes. And if they, want to make changes and want to refine these, then they can decide if these really, in all fairness, in my perspective, these should have just been submitted as comments from the CAC, not as a resolution.
Right.
Because to me, that's a little too much for this effort here.
Yeah.
Especially since a number of these comments, as Craig said, are done with I think, I did, that is not appropriate for a resolution. In addition, there are some pretty interesting statements in here that I don't really think are very appropriate for us to be saying.
Right.
I think they're making an opinionated call on a project without having the data to back it up. And so that's why you don't see a recommendation from staff on what to do on this, because it was a little bit of discomfort there regarding this because of some of this language. And I talked with Christine and I was like, we really need to clean this up. And we decided, no, that's not appropriate for us to be stepping on what the committee's voted on. So if there is a recommendation to move this to the policy committee at some point, I would recommend or ask that we ask the CAC to maybe clean up some of the language, make it a little more formal, or we just submit the comments to the project team as is. And then it's part of the public record for the project team, so everyone else can see it along with the responses.
Yeah, so as I was reading through these, some of the main overarching questions or concerns or ideas, I would say that I feel similarly with many of these. But having been on both sides of the process, feel like your comment about them being comments that they make is a valuable approach. I am trying to track some of these myself in the different roles that I have as municipal traffic engineer. And recognize that there's still a lot left in the process for like pedestrian and bicycle concerns. Those are gonna get addressed. Those aren't necessarily the model, there's other ways, but kind of like Mr. Jackson's comments that he provided. So I think I would be happy if what we said, or, you know, even myself saying, you know, these are, thanks for letting us know what your thoughts are. Please submit to the project team and yeah. I guess it's not so much the committee's tracking it, but I know that I'm just mindful of some of the bigger picture perspectives that are being expressed. That's underlying here. Looks like Matt Stitchick had his hand raised.
Yeah, I think Aaron mentioned something about an opportunity to make these part of the public record on that effort to be posted on the website. I would advocate for that. Don't know what it requires of us to do that.
So we could, yeah, I guess before I say too much more, are there any other questions or comments from the committee?
I guess my thought is, I mean, it seems to make sense to me, since we have comments from the project team or responses from the project team on these, which, while the CAC got them, they didn't have a lot of time to chew on them. It would seem to make sense to me. There certainly are a number of these where they're talking about, you didn't do any modeling of pedestrian, and you have a quality response to me would make sense on why there wasn't pedestrian modeling. That's not what this particular model does. It seems like it would make sense to remand with your responses, with the project team's responses, back to the CAC and let them decide if they want to modify any of these. I mean, these are comments, and some of them are a little inflammatory. Talking about this is like taking the sledgehammer and tapping a nail for hanging the picture. That is not something that I think either the technical advisory committee or the policy committee should be sending to the project team as AMAT's official comments on something. So that part it would need to be modified for me to support this. But that's what I would think we would want to do, is make sure that they have a chance to chew on the responses a little bit more from the project team, and then decide if they still want to send them all through. Some of those things I just couldn't support.
Consider a way to provide the resolution that speaks more from AMAX versus from individuals.
Yeah, this is, I mean, you can read the comment that says I, on the comment with the I word in there, that's not AMAT's. So, AMAT's, certainly the TAC is a technical group of experts. We have engineers, we have planners, we have, other folks here that are experts in their fields. We're not making inflammatory statements like that, like using a sledgehammer to drive in a nail. That's not a technical thing that we would do. That's certainly something the policy committee could do if they wanted to. They're allowed to do that, but it's not us. It's not how an MPO is set up. So,
Okay, thanks, Mr. Lyon. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Like, as I read the questions and comments, if a resolution format to me would focus on what do we really want? We want to make sure that we have the complete streets. We want to make sure that we have a good quality of life for Fairview residents, and that all these things are taken into account. I feel like that would be more of the tone that I would expect to see in a resolution, rather than digging into, the details of questions about the modeling. I think those things could be directed just directly to the project team, and they're going to have a satisfactory answer or not, but good questions, really good questions. But I would encourage if they would revisit and really want to make that broad statement of these are the things that are important to make sure that they're addressed as into the project, incorporated in the project, that it's focused on what is the desire? What is the outcome that we're really trying to achieve? That's normally what I would see in that exchange for resolution content.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Voss. Any other questions passed from the committee? Okay, let's give the public an opportunity to comment. Anyone from the public? That will be in the room or no one online. So that moves it back to what's the will of the committee? We've talked about a few different items.
Matt's got his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Brad, I will move that AMAT staff recommend to the, I'm sorry, to the community council, or yeah, I'm sorry, the community advisory committee, that they revisit these concerns in light of responses provided, and we recommend that they forward any specific recommendations directly to the policy committee in light of responses and any outstanding concerns that they still have.
You capture that?
Yeah,
Okay. So we've got a motion to make sure I understood this correct, to have staff reply to the Citizen Advisory Committee that they
revisit the concerns in light of the responses and forward any specific recommendations directly to the policy committee.
okay, so
Correct.
reconsider, so that would mean the responses that DOT provided. And then.
Correct.
forward with it. So do we have a second on that motion?
Are they gonna submit their comments directly to DOT? I mean,
That's
has
not what
that
they-
ever been,
So,
has that ever been done? I think we should do that.
so if I understood that correctly, it's saying that we're suggesting these comments go back to, the resolution goes back to the Community Advisory Committee. And then they look at them with our comments and comments from DOT, and then they send something different directly to the policy committee bypassing us.
Actually, come to think of it, since we're not recommending them to do it in resolution form, I think they could submit comments directly to DOT. It wouldn't have to go through policy committee, but essentially, yeah. So let me
Yes.
modify that to say, and recommend that community advisory committee submit any outstanding recommendations to DOT directly.
The project team,
Yes, the project team.
There's a project team directly. Okay.
okay, so to get the gist of it, we're recommending that they consider the responses that DOT provided and submit any outstanding comments.
Not
to the
not
project.
comments, outstanding recommendations, because that's part of the problem is they're making comments without a specific action to be taken, I think.
Yes, any recommendations to the project team. Okay, any seconds to that motion? I guess if we don't get a second, does that mean someone else might want to make a different motion, or how does that work?
Yeah,
Somebody.
it fails, somebody else can make an ultimate recommendation.
Yeah, if nobody, sorry, I'll repeat what everyone's saying. If nobody does a second, then it fails, and then somebody else can make a motion.
Okay,
So recommendation is to have them submit it back to the project team, including
so
recommendations.
the motion before us that Matt made is that staff will email the community advisory committee and request that they review the comments that DOT has provided, their responses that they provided their comment, and then reply to DOT project team with any additional recommendation.
See, the DOT has never received these formally. Is that true?
Right,
no.
but that's, our recommendation is to,
It should formally submit it to DOT so that it can go on record with the responses.
Well, the problem is this, we are talking about comments that are coming from AMATs. And those have to come to the policy committee. If they're going to the project team and they say AMATs on it, but they've not come to the policy committee, that's not the right way to work. They have to come back to the TAC and then to the policy committee. Well, at the least they have to go to the policy committee. We can't send them directly to DOT unless someone wants to send these to the DOT, the project team, but they're not coming from AMATs.
Okay,
Because these are coming from AMATs, and if
It's
they're coming from
why.
AMATs, the policy committee has to agree them.
Well, we have made changes recently to allow our subcommittees to submit comments directly, as long as it's acknowledged it's from the subcommittees only and not from the rest of it, because it has become impossible for AMAT subcommittees to get comments in on time during comment periods by going through the TAC and policy committee. So we've
If
had a
that's
little
what-
more flexibility allowed for committee comments if they want to submit it.
if that's allowed, then that's still my motion, that they respond directly to DOT.
as the subcommittee. Okay,
Community council.
Yeah, as the community advisory
I
committee
see.
only.
With the clarification that these are comments directly from the community council without further approval by subsequent AMATS committees or further, I guess, authorization from subsequent committee review.
we'll second it.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Just so I get this right, the motion is that staff requests that the community advisory committee review the DOT responses, and then as a committee submit any comments or recommendations that they have directly to the project team. That seem like that captures where we're at now with this?
Yes, that's what I got.
Okay, so any committee discussion on that motion?
Well, I'm gonna oppose the motion just because I think this particular project it's a very large project and it's a very important project and it's had, as Mr. Jackson said, a lot of comments already, so it's definitely a lot of community interest. And if they're coming from AMATs, I think they need to come to the policy committee, so I would not support sending them directly to the DOT without it coming back to the policy.
Forward to the policy.
I think these comments should go back to the CAC and then come back to the policy. The motion is to send them directly to DOT, so I don't support that
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment, Craig.
motion.
And that's kind of what I was getting at, is that transparency, because there is a lot of question and interest from the CAC. And so for the policy committee to have that full understanding, they would be able to see it. And that's what I was kind of saying, is there something like an AIM that's not a resolution?
It would just have to be comments. We could just do it as like a letter with comments written to the project team from AMATS itself.
Well, I believe Mr. Stitch just suggested that he would accept as a friendly amendment if we took these back through the policy committee. So
Yes.
I heard
And-
correctly, so. that
And
wouldn't
also
have an
recommend,
objection if we're doing that.
recommend that the next go around they not come through as a resolution, because that has a more I don't know how to say it. That's usually reserved for matters. Yeah, matters of official
Well, I
definite
kind of
policy
want to
change.
adjust the motion of what Melinda had said, that instead of having these sorts of comments, but instead we ask them to revise it with higher level, what their priorities are in a way that speaks less to comments and more to a high level of what their priorities are for the project, what they're trying to accomplish. That could be higher level for what the policy committee could support versus specific comments, right? That's kind of what you.
That's what I would normally see for something that's a resolution type of language and time.
So
But
I think as I look at this, that's what I feel like makes more sense from INMATS to be doing. To be able to say, these are some of the things that we find to be priorities and would like to be included or considered, or, versus kind of this sort of specificity. But so that would be a revised, my perspective on a revised motion. But I'm just, yeah, so.
Tell you what, I will withdraw my motion if Craig will offer a substitute.
I think we were there. I think.
I mean, I would recommend
There.
that this go back to the CAC. They would look at the information from DOT. They revise their comments, submit it back through the technical advisory committee and the policy committee as comments, not in the resolution. And then those comments can be submitted to the project team. If there's a desire to do a resolution of high level things, then we can do that at another time. But to solve this issue and to try and move forward, as we have a few other items on the agenda, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, but I heard Craig say he wants it to go through all the committees.
Yeah, to the TAC and policy committee.
Okay. Agreed.
Okay,
I think we have a friendly amendment done.
okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
do
So
it.
so Mr. Stitchick has the friendly, has the motion, and who was the second one though?
Melinda.
I'll be.
Okay.
Okay.
As was summarized by Aaron, send it back to the Citizen Advisory Committee. Then reconsider based on DOT's responses and submit us back to invite comments. That summarize it
Or
well?
recommendation,
Okay,
Great.
but not in a resolution format.
Yep.
There you go. Okay, we did it.
okay. So are there any additional comments? Discussion? Are there any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay. Okay, got it. That gets us through the action items. Next, we have item 6A, destination UMED study update.
Yeah. I'm gonna note that Steve Rebuffalo just left.
Okay. Sounds good. Let the minutes show that Steve Rebuffalo left at 3:55 p.m. Who will be taking up Mr. Cecil? Just go ahead.
So in light of time, because I know there's several other issues besides this one, I'm gonna turn it over to Phil Olmsted, who's principal with Nelson Nygaard, who his firm has been working with AMAX on the destination UMED study, and he's gonna give you an update. So it's all yours, Phil.
All right, can folks hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Let me bring up a few slides. I'll do my best to keep this brief. Give me 1 minute here. Oh, you guys are all getting a standing break. Great. Can folks see my screen? Is that a yes? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, TAC members. My name is Phil Olmstead. I'm a principal at Nelson Nygaard Consulting Associates. We're a national transportation planning firm and leading the consultant work on this effort. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. We have no action items, but really just did want to give you all a brief update on the work to date and where we're headed. Just a reminder for folks that Destination UMED is a transportation demand management study, or a TDM study. Our charge is really to develop a plan and toolkit that the district and its various stakeholders can implement over time to make it easier to travel to, from, and within the district. We're not focused on any one roadway project or infrastructure investment, really looking to develop a holistic and long-term and comprehensive vision and strategic plan. And the likely solutions and strategies, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, are a mix of projects and policies and programs. Just also another reminder for folks that the origin of the study came from the 2016 district plan, which made one of its core transportation recommendations to do a TDM study, and also really continue to emphasize the need for ongoing collaboration and coordination in the district. I think folks here in this room generally know what TDM, but it's a pretty wonky term. It's really a fancy way of saying let's make our transportation system more efficient. At its core, we're trying to reduce vehicle traffic and improve other mobility choices. And to be clear, that doesn't mean we're getting everyone out of their car. We know that people will continue to drive to and from UMED. That's okay. But we're trying to provide more options and make it easier for certain types of trips to be without a vehicle. And it's definitely not a silver bullet solution. We typically when we talk about TDM, we look at kind of 4 buckets. Physical infrastructure, what can we do to the streets to make it safer to walk, bike, or take transit? How are we communicating and sharing out information about travel options? What policies and programs might we use to incentivize folks to try different modes for certain types of trips? And how can we use pricing to continue to make efficient use of our parking and transportation assets? This is our study area from Lake Otis to Baxter and Northern Lights to Tudor. We definitely know that folks come from all over the city and all over the region to UMED, but this is really the focused geography of our study. And there's lots of different stakeholders within the district. So we're definitely not serving one user. It's residents, it's visitors, it's patients, it's employees, it's students. This is our timeline. We got going in spring and summer of last year, and we're well into what we call our kind of desire and design phases. We just had our meeting with our advisory committee yesterday and moving towards a second community workshop in late April with the goal of wrapping up in summer of this year. I've done a lot of work thus far. I'll summarize a little bit more of that in detail. One of the things we did at the outset was form an advisory committee, what we call the UMED Advisory Committee. So lots of acronym soup over there on the right, but really just making sure that we're talking and speaking with the stakeholders and users in UMED to make sure that they can weigh in, provide feedback, and guide us along the way. We've had a lot of one-on-one conversations with these folks as well. Just a quick highlight of some of our work. We did a site tour and assessment. We've had a couple meetings with the UAC and did some of those stakeholders. This was back in, early, maybe it was May, I think, of last year, where we really start to dig into some of the core issues and opportunities. We have a project website, a public involvement plan, lots of collateral. All of the information and deliverables are on that project website. We did a travel survey in the fall. We got about 1,000 responses, which is really great. And that data has been really helpful to deepening our understanding of travel behavior by user group and really honing in on some of the potential strategies. We looked at a lot of data and analyzed a lot of data points from all of our partners and summarized a lot of the key themes and findings. And this was our workshop in October, where we got a lot of great qualitative feedback and discussion from community members. We've also done a lot of best practices review, really looking at examples across the country about how TDM has been applied in similar districts, such as UMED, similar communities, trying to demonstrate and show out proof of concept. And again, summarized and did a lot of slicing and dicing of data from that travel survey. And all of this is available on the website. We've moved towards developing some really focused goals to guide the plan as we move into the second half and really come up with strategies. I think all of you know that we need these goals to kind of define the long-term vision and really anchor the plan and the work. And so we distilled a couple of the data findings and the community feedback into these kind of core goals, and got some great feedback from them from the UAC yesterday. So really a focus on multimodal trips, safety and comfort, particularly for those who are walking and biking and taking transit, prioritizing equitable access for different modes, ensuring coordinated delivery of services and communication of transportation services. A lot of feedback on the challenges of travel, particularly during winter in the district, and how we can address that. Providing more travel options and really helping our major anchors and employment centers continue to grow. And we started to develop a strategy framework. It's really focused trying to find, again, not a silver bullet, but the right mix and combination of different strategies, again, to serve all these different user groups and all the different stakeholders and institutions within UMED. And this is kind of the framework we've developed. Again, it's focused around those 4 buckets that I mentioned earlier: physical infrastructure, communications and management, what pricing tools we might use, and programs and policies. This is a big list. There's a lot of ideas in here. We're just starting to test this with the group. A big part of our work is making sure that this plan is actionable, it's realistic. So there will be a phasing component, a prioritization process through this effort to see what of these strategies we may be able to do in the short term. What's the low-hanging fruit? Again, this is intended to be a 10-year strategic plan. So a lot of this may take a little bit more time to advance or move forward. But yeah, really starting to get into the weeds and really develop the recommendations. And I will stop there and just open it up to questions or feedback on any of our work to date, any issues or opportunities that y'all really want to emphasize or make sure we look at, and any feedback you had on some of those goals or strategies. And that's about 8 months of work in 5 minutes. So had to be brief, but there's a lot of detail if folks want to know more.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. You did a great job summarizing that work in a short amount of time. Are there any questions from the committee members?
I've got a question. This is
Yeah.
Melinda. Does the boundary cover Tudor Road? Or
Tudor is our southern boundary. So we're definitely had a lot of conversations around not just the street network and safety and access within UMED, but those arterials that surround UMED. So yes.
because I think there's interest in having easier crossings, maybe even at between Piper and Elmore, somewhere in there. I don't know.
I don't know if it goes that far
Oh,
to the west.
oh,
Is it bounded by Elmore, or does it go over to the? Maybe that's.
So
what
we're Lake Otis to, Lake Otis to Baxter. So yeah, it does cover Elmore, it does cover Piper. And that's one of the things we have heard and observed is those are very long blocks. So it's really hard to, if you get dropped off at the bus on the south side of Tudor, in between one of those mid-block crossings, we observed even just the few times we've been out there, people making a run for it across Tudor. So yeah, it's one of the things we've heard. It's one of the things we've identified for sure.
Thank you.
Is Scott Thomas with VOT part of some of the committees?
Staff, maybe you can help me out. We've talked to so many people. I know a lot of folks in the room. We've had conversations with a lot of the folks in the room are on our project management team. And I believe we've chatted with him. John or Aaron, maybe you can help me.
This is John. Yeah, there was a conversation last year with Scott Thomas, some of the safety authorities.
Yeah. I know that they're looking at a crossing that Wright Street in that area with potential HSIP funding. So, but I guess my last question is, when will things come before us for actually action items? Will this be something that comes to the?
Well, this is a study, so as far as I'm aware, there's nothing for the FAC and policy committee to approve. But we will definitely provide you with the end result, the final deliverable from Nelson Nygaard.
So there's not any like approvals that we have to do.
Not that I'm aware.
I mean, we will bring it to the TAC and policy committee for kind of like final review and approval, basically. But again, it is a study, so approval is just, yeah, we accept the study as it is, kind of. So it will be brought back through you guys for a final review.
So it's an AMAT study, it's like MTP, it needs our approval.
Yeah, it's not as formal as the MTP, where that's actually codified in federal regulations. Right. This is just kind of us. Do you guys approve the study as written and stuff, or do you want to see changes to it?
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, go ahead, Logan.
You know, you had a segment or a category of pricing for parking. I'm having a hard time envisioning like metered parking in that area. Could you kind of give me a sense of where that would be?
Yeah, this is one of those strategies that I think that falls into that bucket of a later phase. There is price parking within the district already. It is done by UAA. The majority of the rest of the parking is free. We're not at this time contemplating, parking meters on streets or anything like that. I think it's more about giving individual institutions the technical resources to be able to manage their parking better with a potential tool like pricing. But certainly, deferring to them and recognizing their autonomy to manage their parking as they see fit. But again, it is one of kind of the core TDM strategies when we look at other successful case studies. And I think, again, it's finding the right time and the right, how much we want to turn that knob, so to speak, within UMED. Does that help?
Yes, but I was just thinking about parking meters on streets, but yeah, that does answer my question.
Yeah, there's not a lot of on-street parking within the district. Certainly within the core of the district, as you move into the residential areas, there is. Most of that is, there's not a lot of on-street parking, and most of it, the vast majority of parking is off-street. Almost 18,000 spaces. Fun fact.
Any other questions? Okay. Do you say public questions?
Yes, yeah, we allow the public to speak on.
Any questions from the public? Okay, not seeing any questions from the public. Thank you so much for the presentation and for all the work. We really appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Appreciate everyone's time. Look forward to talking to you more.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Next item, 6B, Transportation System Management and Operations Plan Update. Also known as TSMO.
It's Christine Schutte.
Yeah, hi, I'm giving you a brief update on this plan. As Brett said, Transportation System Management and Operations. It's just to refresh memories, enhance this plan that looks for opportunities to enhance safety and efficiency with the system that we already have. So is there a fix that is not a capacity increase? So how can we efficiently manage our capacity? Over half of congestion is non-reoccurring. This plan looks for solutions and strategies to target that non-recurring congestion, weather events, snow events, special events, work zones, etc. And so we had this, it's kind of started in summer. We had the project team come back with best practices, and they are working up project list criteria to select that project list, all under the caveat of the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So always looking to that overall vision for our. At the transportation fair, if you were there, we were highlighting this plan where we had a survey of different strategies that would be TSMO strategies and asked for public input on those. Are they concerned about strategies? Do they think different ones would work in the area? The consultants are working on compiling that information. So we will be able to get that out to you and they have that compiled. We have a technical advisory group for this plan. They've been weighing in and talking about the synergies that already exist between MOA and DOT. They're going to weigh in at the end of this month, probably to come back with the draft project list and criteria. And then again, next month where there's performance measures and proposed performance measures that help meet those goals and objectives that are again tied to the MTP. I think, and then at that point, we probably should be able to come back to you later spring, early summer with the summary presented by the consultant team of this plan and their suggestions moving forward. I think that's my quick update on the.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
I look forward to a presentation. I'm particularly interested in the performance measures and monitoring and having those be manageable. So for the team as they're preparing, I'd like them to present those and make those considerations as they're developing and reviewing that aspect, because it takes staff time, it takes resources to actually do those, and they just have to be realistic. As you're preparing the presentation, that's an aspect that I would particularly like to see in information presented.
Are there any questions or comments? I thought it was interesting that we looked at both TDM and TSMO in the same meeting. Those are two other, when you look at projects that increase capacity and that are making changes to the road versus TDM and TSMO are often the two that are combined that are looking at how to manage demand and how to manage why kind of more efficiently use the system. So.
Yeah, this is a new plan for AMATs, and where AMATs can weigh in maybe is a few more of those like spot treatments and near misses for pedestrian signals or a crosswalk. But the plan will basically, as a first glance, where are we, what synergies already exist, and what would it take to get to the next level? Because to have a TSMO program, it's not static, it's ongoing. Like you said, it takes staff time, it takes dedicated resources to keep moving the needle into that direction. But I think at AMATs, we want to look at all, when we see project nominations, is there a TSMO solution here to make sure that we're assessing all of the options that are available.
Thanks. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? How about from the public? Any questions or comments from the public? I don't see any online, seeing in the room. Thank you, Christine, for that update. Really appreciate it. We'll move on to the item 6C, public input platform introduction.
This is also Christine. I think this is the first meeting where I've only had one item I've had to deal with. So this has been a wonderful meeting.
Like you.
Yeah, so we just wanted to let you know, coming soon is a new public participation platform. So we have public input and it's going to be a one-stop shop for public participation and AMATs to happen. So any project that we have will live on there. We can track engagement. We will have outreach opportunities that we don't have right now, like we can send SMS texts out. We can have people tailor how they want to get information from us and how they want to give information to us. And then each project, had we like set up TSMO and UMED together, they would be within this platform. The website would be within this platform so that it can track comments, it can track engagement, and moving forward, we can see if there's areas of the image area that we need to do further targeted outreach on, and just to make sure that we're hearing from a diverse set of voices in the area. So we will have a first kind of survey coming out soon that is just, how would you like us to contact you? How do you want to contact us, so that we can tailor those situations to make it easy to participate in the process.
Good, thanks for sharing. So I'm assuming it's gonna, did you say a map that you can see, kind of like public comment map, or is it more like a form?
It can have a map if people provide that opportunity or that information.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee? How about public? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, I guess we'll come back to the committee. Go ahead.
So do we?
Yeah, we will.
Is it a requirement for AMATs to have this platform, or is there something that it's replacing? Is there already?
It's replacing just a piecemeal way that we outreach. So we are tasked with trying to diversify participation, and right now it would take a lot. This will help us be able to do it with our small resource pool that we have, instead of piecemealing everything and trying to like pull these comments in and these from here and trying to see the whole picture of who we're reaching, where we could be doing better, and then providing like having the SMS texting built in, so that if people want to, you know, we can fill out a survey via their phone. It doesn't even have to be a smartphone. They can do that. It just it's kind of a one-stop shop that helps, because we are only a 5-person team. If we can get everything trained up that way to go to that one place, and then as consultants build websites for different projects, if they're doing it within our platform, it's not going to be archived when the project ends, right? It's always there. It's always in our control. We always have the information.
So is the intent to have the project website or a contact link embedded into this, so their comments would go to the project team as well as?
Yes, we can turn on and off. Like if we have a consultant team, project team that's not part of AMATs, we can give an opportunity for that consultant to be in that space for that one particular project. And then, yeah, if we have a social media post about a particular event, we can link that to this project so that those comments are pulled in. If every project would have its own email, so that projects, they don't just go to our AMATs info anymore, and then we have to sort and give it to who it's appropriate. They will email the particular project. It'll go to one area. It will create the table that says this project, this comment came in via text, this comment came in via email, so you know how to respond back to people the way they responded to you. We're excited.
Or hopefully you're excited. It sounds like a lot of work. I don't know. I mean, if it was just program comments, you know, besides projects, beyond the projects that are already underway, that'd be one thing. But if you already have a project team dedicated to responding to the comments,
They can still do that. They can still-
then you're like doing kind of double duty. You already have a project team responding to comments, and then you're gonna have to respond to comments as well.
No, it's
No.
just keeping all the comments in one place.
Okay.
Funnel-
It's like a
funneling
repository. It's
Yes,
a repository.
It's primarily focused for AMATs. The projects we do is AMAT staff, so like our studies and plans and stuff that. we
Okay.
do. Because what happens right now is they create an external website and that disappears with all the data
Mm-hmm.
after the project is done. So this will help keep it
Houses it.
alive,
Okay.
basically, so we don't lose that. In addition to any comments coming in, it's for that project, housed in that particular section of the platform. And so it's easy for us to pull a report on all those comments, instead of having to kind of like manually create things, because that's how Christine handles all of it right now, is basically manually doing everything. And so this helps to kind of automate some of it a little more, and make it more efficient for
Okay.
us, as well as allowing us, like she said, to be able to focus on areas of town that we, you know, historically may not reach out to as much. It helps us identify those locations, say, okay, we got comments from here, Spenard, and here, East Anchorage, but we didn't get any like the north part of Anchorage, or we didn't get South Anchorage, so maybe we need to maybe tailor some work, some outreach efforts for those locations. It's kind of a first thing, a new thing for us, so it's kind of, you know, learn as we grow.
I appreciate hearing that aspect versus this is all about road design projects that are already underway that have project teams. They can comment on it, but that's not your primary target of information that you're.
No, just our planning project.
Your plan.
Yes,
process.
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
And it would
Sorry.
only be for new projects, not existing projects,
That's-
new ones that were, like the safety plan that AMAS is doing, we're gonna be starting as the first project in there, but if it's already an underway project, we're not gonna retroactively bring it all in, because it's just too much work.
that's very good. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions or comments from the committee? I see that Jamie, that your hand was out. Did you have anything still to add, or?
It was up, but I was hoping that maybe other agencies or sister entities would be able to use the tool or invest in it as well. Is that potentially an option?
I mean, you would end up having to get your own license for it, just with how the program is set up and everything. Other than us inviting people to participate on a particular project, it's kind of buy a license and have access to the program.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I can see some partnerships with transit, projects that we could do together.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, very much so.
okay. I know the traffic is interested in figuring out a way that when people reach out to us, we can be able to track their requests, so. As you develop it, maybe there would be opportunities to, but that might make it too complex to try to integrate too much into it.
It could, it just is more licensed, but it could grow to be the whole MOA, and then each department is just, we would have control over AMATs, and you would have control over license for traffic, like other cities and counties use it that way. It's a platform that is geared to government. So that's how it's mostly used.
For the guinea pigs, because DOT is interested in it as well to see how we're doing.
Okay, that is good. That'll be good, that's exciting. Okay. Looks like we're moving on to item 7 now, general information. Is there any general information to add? How about item 8, committee comments? Any comments from the committee? Go ahead, Doug.
I have a quick comment. For those of you that know me, for those of you that don't, this is like the second to the last meeting. I'm retiring in May 1st, so next month will be my last meeting. Hopefully my position is advertised and they're hiring for it soon. hopefully they'll get somebody on staff and I can bring them along to the next meeting to introduce them.
Well,
Almost
sad to see you go, but, that sounds exciting too. Next phase of, yeah, once we get into your time. And Giles, that's awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Other committee comments? Let's see, so any public comments? Okay, seeing no public comments, it looks like we're gonna end with 4 minutes to the hour, or 4 minutes to the end, so 4:26 for adjourned.
Thank you.